13 years is a long time to work with someone on the same show. But it seems like things weren't always smooth sailing for Michael and Mark on NCIS. Curious to know what their dynamic was like when they first started on the show? Well, Michael Weatherly has finally uncovered the difficulties he faced working with Mark on NCIS. And the stuff he said is just yikes. Michael Weatherly, the actor who portrayed Tony DiNozzo on NCIS, actually admitted that he and Mark Harmon were complete opposites on the show, and he had the audacity to say that Harmon was the North Pole and he was Antarctica, as if their differences were some sort of cosmic joke. The two were completely confused about each other's polarity. Mark had no idea why someone like Michael was on set, and Harmon was apparently thrown off by Weatherly's presence from the start. Talk about two completely different personalities. Michael Weatherly brought some humor to the set. I mean, it's no secret that Weatherly has a knack for making people laugh. No shocker here. But it's a bit disheartening that he had to deal with Harmon's serious and somber demeanor.
I asked Dad if I could get a few, and then what I did is I brought them to school, and I started selling them, and they were moving like hotcakes.
So you're talking Swiss Army black market?
Yeah, I was adding 10%, just to...
That too, on a daily basis. It's not just a contrast in personalities, it's a contrast in approach to work. Weatherly seemed to bring energy and a positive outlook to the set, while Harmon brought a more serious and reserved attitude. It's no wonder the two didn't see eye to eye. It's like night and day. Michael Weatherly just went on and on. He talked about how Mark Harmon was completely thrown off by his presence from the start. Michael even jokingly bragged about getting a rubber gun and a fake badge during the pilot, saying that it was the best part about the pilot. It was an obvious joke to the reporter, but Mark didn't find it funny at all. The look Mark gave him was both weird and hilarious. Mark just couldn't understand why you would say something like that to a news outlet. It's like Michael's a little kid who couldn't control his excitement over toy props, but a reply like that is just too funny not to make. It's a shame that the two didn't hit it off right from the start though, but with such different personalities, it was bound to happen. It's no secret that Michael Weatherly is just like his character Tony DiNozzo in NCIS, a big joker. He may be all business when he needs to be, but he's always cracking jokes to keep the mood light and avoid any awkward tension. So his response to the CNN interviewer was typical Weatherly behavior. Weatherly's tendency to make jokes and lighten the mood is a big part of who he is, while Harmon's reserved and serious demeanor is just as much a part of him.
And there's a responsibility in that, and there has been over a number of years. You work with these people every day, and it only works when people want to be there. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud of being there for 17 years, certainly, but
with these differences in personalities and approaches to work, it must have been an interesting dynamic on set to say the least. But here's the thing, Weatherly and Mark Harmon were just co-stars and acquaintances at that point, not friends. It's a good thing they were able to work together for 13 years despite these differences, but it's a little surprising that they were able to coexist for so long. And let's be real, Mark Harmon is all about being serious and professional. He wouldn't dare make a joke in an interview. Shows how these two were complete opposites when they first started working together. But over time, it seems like they probably grew to understand each other better, just like their characters did on the show. And talking about their characters, wow, it's crazy how even the relationship between their characters was so rocky.
We're gonna find out what play it was anyway.
Le Cajafo. Le Cajafo.
Please tell me you're playing the part of the drag queen Zaza.
Tony DiNozzo looked up to Gibbs, played by Mark Harmon, as a mentor and father figure. But even then, Gibbs was always dishing out tough love, and Tony was constantly trying to regain his favor. And let's not forget, Gibbs had to physically discipline Tony for his inappropriate behavior countless times. Talk about a dysfunctional dynamic. It sounds like Michael Weatherly really struggled with working alongside Mark Harmon on NCIS. Not only was he unable to grasp the concept of Harmon's character, Leroy Jethro Gibbs, but their differing acting styles only added fuel to the fire. It's almost unbelievable. These two actors had such polar opposite techniques. How could they coexist on the same show for 13 years? You gotta wonder what was really going on behind the scenes. I can only imagine the drama. These two were like oil and water. They just didn't mix well. Weather may have had a lighthearted approach, but it seems like it was a constant battle for these two. It was a rough time for Michael to get on the same page as Harmon and their characters, but if that wasn't rough enough for Michael, he was in a world of trouble on the set of NCIS. Not only was he struggling to understand Gibbs, causing tension between the two, but playing his own character was causing some issues too. He had to admit, it was a challenge coming up with fresh takes on the same scene and lines week after week. Talk about a major headache. It's no wonder he was so lighthearted and joked around. He probably needed it just to get through the day on set. But seriously, playing the same character for 13 years? Who wouldn't get a little antsy for some variety? And he did indeed get impatient. He desperately tried to spice things up a bit before leaving the show for good. He tried incorporating some of Steve Martin's techniques, which was apparently his idea of keeping things interesting, but little did he know he was only shooting himself in the foot by doing so. When you play the central character, you gotta know your limits, or you'd risk looking like a complete lunatic. But why did he leave NCIS in the first place? Michael Weatherly had to bid the show farewell in 2016, leaving behind his 13-year run as Tony DiNozzo. But the reason for his departure was one that many would understand: family. He wanted to focus on being a hands-on dad and prioritizing his children. While it might have been sad for the fans of the show, the man himself hinted at a possible return as a guest star.
This was the restaurant with the stripes.
TGIF.
Right. I was not the host of Friday Night Comedy Bar.
That's different than I
I was table for four.
He proclaimed his love for the franchise and declared that he's open to any and every possibility, even things that hadn't been thought of. Basically, he's leaving the door wide open for a comeback, and he just might get one in 2023 if his Twitter is anything to go by. He loves the show and has looked back on his time on NCIS with fondness. He's even said that despite the ups and downs, both of them had a pretty solid working relationship, to the point where the two had mutual respect for one another by the time Michael left. It wasn't friendship, but it was something. And as time went on, Michael only came to appreciate Mark more. It's mind-blowing that he admitted he learned a lot from Harmon, as if the guy was some kind of sage. Talk about a 180. And what's even more shocking is that Michael finally grasped the brilliance of what Harmon was doing all those years ago. All it took was him becoming the lead of his own show, Bull. He finally understood why Harmon wasn't having as much fun as him during NCIS either. I guess Michael times at Bull really opened his eyes to things. So, as we uncover the difficulties Michael Weatherly faced with Mark Harmon on the hit show NCIS, we see that even the most successful people have it rough sometimes.